Welcome to Rankin on Bass, an offhanded joke that became a long-running podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me is a lion who's scared of his own shadow, Mr. Chris Dashew.
You know, Mike, are you saying that I am the coded gay character from this? Because you're right! Dandelion! Oh my! Boy, and I thought Hermie the elf was gay.
Also along for the ride is a scarecrow looking for a brain, Mr. Richard Haddam.
I got nothing.
Not even gonna say the whole Euclidean thing incorrectly. No, okay.
Look, I don't recognize this character because his name is Socrates.
Yeah, that's true.
And he looks like an onion sack, or
he
an
does.
onion, or he just looks like an onion with a face.
That head
dealing
is
with
huge.
a whole new cast of characters.
Mm-hmm. Whole new cast of characters in a whole new story you've totally never seen before.
Yeah. On this podcast, we discuss the works of Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, usually talking about their stop motion work, but this is an animated tale. It is one of the first things that they did, though. As I was doing my research, Return to Oz is a sequel of sorts to Tales of the Wizard of Oz, which Rankin and Bass produced from 1961 to 1961. There were 3 months and 110 episodes. What the hell? Because they were 5 minutes each.
Was it 110 or 130?
Oh, maybe it's 130.
Wikipedia
is telling me 110.
I want to make sure for all the completionists out there who really want to not just subject themselves to this movie, but 150 more 5-minute vignette episodes of this movie. Go right for it. Be my guest.
I don't need 10,000 emails saying that we got that fact wrong.
Man, that's a big number, minus the 10,000.
Yeah.
My inbox is crammed with Rankin on Bass complaints.
Oh boy. Wow. Is that where they go?
No, a few compliments, a few fans out there, but mostly just thousands and thousands of people saying you got this small detail wrong. So I don't want for them, because they're good people, I don't want to screw anything up.
I was taken right out of this podcast as soon as they made one mistake.
I mean, the first mistake was watching this, right?
Yeah, boy. Return to Oz, 1964, produced by Crawley Films. That was F.R. Crawley's company. F.R. Crawley, who seems like he's got to be Canadian from his filmography. He just is all over Canadian stuff. He did a whole series called the RCMP. He's done some things for Newfoundland scene, Great Lakes. A lot of Canadian content there. But this was an early production of Rankin and Bass. There are 3 directors listed on this thing, which is just amazing. Though it was written by our old friend Romeo Muller. So we are kind of starting things off right there. This should not be confused with the 1985 Walter Murch nightmare fuel film Return to Oz, though maybe there's some similarities, just that it's Dorothy going back. She's being tricked by the Wicked Witch of the West, who has returned somehow, because it's just like Palpatine. Somehow the Wicked Witch has returned.
Hold on a second. It's because it became winter time.
That's
and
right.
She froze. She was water and she froze.
And that brought her back.
That's totally legit, by the way. I think the smallest amount of effort was made to stitch together some logic that allows them to basically retell the story of the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
It would be nice if there was something else, like, I don't know, a much more iconic movie that existed that told this story with songs that, like, I don't know if there's a version of this with songs that everybody remembers that are still being sung today, that are pinball machines are being made of, and people are still talking. I don't know if there's anything like that about the Wizard of Oz, but somebody should do that, because if this is all we ever get for the Wizard of Oz, man, what a shame. I can't believe they just retold the goddamn story. As if there weren't so many other. What's crazy is, because guess what I did for this? I read the first Wizard of Oz book in the last day. And you know what? It is exactly what you would expect. It is charming and it's delightful and it's modern American mythology, because that's why L. Frank Baum admittedly wanted to write it, because he wanted to create mythology that more contemporary children could understand versus, the tales of King Arthur. And it feels that way when you read it. But there are like so many of these books to use as a source material. Like
tons. Okay, so is the second L. Frank Baum book Return to Oz, and is it this story?
No,
it's about a boy named Tip who's an orphan.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm not even sure Dorothy is immediately returns to Oz, if ever returns to Oz. I'm assuming she probably comes back at some point.
She definitely does. I think like the fourth book is called Dorothy of Oz or something like that.
Right, but she's not immediately coming back though.
No.
But these books, it's one of those things where there were a bunch of sequels, but they're not beloved, right? I mean, even if, look, for my generation, you experienced Wizard of Oz through the Judy Garland MGM movie. You didn't experience it by reading the books. And I don't know anyone who read the books, and I certainly don't know anyone who read all the books and recommends them.
Right.
So that was a different generation. And I am a little bit surprised. I mean, because it really is. It's an odd. It's just they came up with a way to retell almost beat for beat in order the same structure with a few added scenes. It's just a redo of the famous Wizard of Oz. That's it.
There are 14 books set in the land of Oz written by L. Frank Baum, starting in 1900 and ending in 1920, with the last book being published posthumously. So it's very strange to me that, I get it, but at the time, wouldn't these have been in the public domain? They're making them because they are, I'm assuming.
Right.
I guess, look, Dorothy is when you look, like you just mentioned, Richard, I didn't grow up reading The Wizard of Oz. Mike, I'm going to assume you didn't either, but we know the movie. So Dorothy is the character that we all associate with Oz. Doesn't matter if there are any other characters. I think now maybe a different generation of kids may be a little bit more in tune with the Wicked Witch of the West, only because of something like Wicked, which came out when I was in high school, which I had to perform in marching band of all places, which is why I kind of don't. It's not that I have a negative feeling towards Oz, but it's weird that this is just that story again, because that story is told so wonderfully in the original movie. It feels like a fool's errand to ever do it again, because nobody can hit the highs. It's really telling of how highs the movie hits when this is as low as it gets.
In my childhood, the only other version of note of The Wizard of Oz was The Wiz.
Yeah, same here.
He's on down the road, baby.
That's right. Yeah, well, there you go. There's a song we know from The Wiz. I don't think there's any other songs we know, even though there was a ton of talent behind that movie. I don't think anything ever kind of jumped into popular culture other than people knowing Ease On Down the Road.
Well, that's because it was Michael Jackson singing.
Yeah. Well, but I got to assume he sang more than one song.
Right. Yeah. I would think that there's more, obviously, but it really, it wasn't made for us, Richard. It definitely was not.
Whoa.
Oh, really? I'm not allowed. I can't go see the
You
Wiz.
can watch it. And
Richard really likes Dionne Warwick, okay?
I love Dionne Warwick.
Yeah.
She was in a few episodes of the Rockford Files.
I'm all about Nipsey Russell myself, but
that's fair.
I know we can look it up. I know we all have our hand computers, but who was in that movie and who was behind it? Was that it
was Barry
Quincy
Gordy.
Jones?
Yeah.
It was Barry Gordy and Quincy Jones. Yep. Doing it up. Diana Ross is Dorothy.
Diana Ross. That's right. I was trying to think of who Dorothy was.
It was directed by Sidney Lumet.
Yeah, exactly.
Why didn't they get an African-American director? Unbelievable.
That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah. It is really out of Sidney Lumet's wheelhouse there, but
it was the gritty streets.
Yeah, exactly.
Of Oz.
But this one, yes, they seem to all have freaking amnesia when it comes to what the wizard is, what he can do, that he's just kind of a humbug and doesn't really have any sort of powers whatsoever, but they treat him like he is a powerful wizard. again. And it's like, what are you doing?
I honestly thought they would have recognized him from his stint later in life as literally the design for Captain Crunch without a mustache.
Wow.
He looks just like Captain Crunch. Like, it's to the point where or as a deeper cut, animated Elijah C. Scuggs, which is also, Captain Crunch adjacent. So
yeah, we've got the introduction of Susan Conway as Dorothy Gale, though it is Susan Morse who does her singing. You would think that they would have a person that can sing and act at the same time, doing one thing rather than paying two people. And yeah, this is real rough. This is really, really rough. The animation style is really rough. Speaking of rough, the Toto animation and him breaking the fourth wall all the time, constantly looking at us, smiling, laughing. I guess he's kind of supposed to be the main character more than anybody else.
Well, he knows he's in a cartoon.
That's true.
He's just so excited to be here. I really kind of realized that the animation style was not only not going to get any better, but it had already shown its hand when Dorothy meets the Munchkins for the first time, who look like colorful of garbage bags is the only way of putting it. They look like trash bags with legs.
They do. And we can't understand them at all. They speak in sped up language.
Oh, that was really good.
She can understand it, but for us, it just sounds like, it's on, a hyper speed. But didn't it remind you, Chris, of The Point?
But not as good.
Yeah, but that same kind of 1960s, kind of stylized with the weird watercolor backgrounds that are sort of in a different dimension.
Oh yeah.
And the minute those little weird bag munchkin things showed up, I'm like, oh, this is like that Harry Nilsson thing.
but like it's not charming though. Like, it's weird. Like, no. It has a style that, again, like the style doesn't really necessarily work for me, but it's so charmless in its presentation of this story. It feels like it is personally going through the motions to the point where there are no full songs. Not that I'm begging for them, because all I was begging for them in this was to be over, but there is nothing in this that feels like they actually attempted to put any effort in, down to this animation style that is so just, okay, like, this is what's going on at the time, so we're just going to do that again.
Yeah, it feels very Chuck Jones to me, the way that he has those weird backgrounds. And the animation style of the characters, to me, really reminds me of, like, Bullwinkle, Dudley Do-Right, that style of animation. I mean, the way that Dorothy looks, she looks so much like Nell from Dudley Do-Right.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the most disturbing thing of this whole thing is that witch's laugh.
Thank you.
That put me on edge every single time.
Oh, and I'm so
upsetting.
glad I'm so glad it only happened like once or twice. Like, I'm so glad that it didn't happen every minute for 50 minutes. I'm really glad that wasn't a choice that they made, because if they had made that choice, well, it would have really put my ability to enjoy this at odds with what I was watching.
Guys, they knew it was the best thing they had.
Right?
And once you know that, you don't just use it once. You're going to use it every single time you see that character, at least once.
They went to the Rod Serling School, Midnight Gallery or Night Gallery, where it's just use the werewolf sound a million times. Just over and over again until we just get sick of it.
They recycled that from that Tales of Oz special. I mean, that was her thing in that. And so now she's got it in this Return to Oz.
Well, and now it's a good time to mention the 110 or 135-minute episodes that were running in 1961, as I guess these were things that would either bookend or be dropped into a half-hour sort of, we're going to check in on a bunch of cartoons, and they made a ton of these. And so this, I guess once that was done, this was sort of a, hey kids, you liked that. Now there's going to be a primetime special with kind of the same characters and sort of the same voices a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, this was first. This was February of 1964. So in terms of their evening network TV specials. This was first, followed then in that December by Rudolph, that was so popular, they segued into that style of animation and left this style for the most part behind.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I checked the credits and I can't remember if there are any Japanese people that are involved with this one.
No, didn't look like it, just Canadians.
Yeah. So that's where Crowley's influence comes from, I guess. And then to your point, Richard, this has some very familiar voices here. Larry D. Mann, who was Yukon Cornelius, and then Carl Banas, who was the head elf, as well as a few other voices, and he is Dandelion. I don't know. Alfie Scop was Socrates the Scarecrow. Yeah, he was Charlie in the Box. Nobody wants a Charlie in the Box.
Oh, nice. I love that voice. I do that one all the time to entertain my friends. They love it.
But can you do Socrates the Straw Man?
No.
Good.
No.
Great.
Not at all.
What's funny is, so in the book, at least in the first book, they don't have names. So I don't know where did the names come from here.
Well, it's weird.
I don't know.
There's always been this weird sort of ping pong back and forth between the Frank Baum books and then what became sort of trademarked through the MGM film.
Right.
In the L. Frank Baum books, they are silver slippers. They became ruby slippers in the movie.
That's right.
And so you can never use the ruby slippers again unless you are, like, I guess, given direct permission from MGM.
You're paying the money.
That's an element of that movie. And so I think what happened was, even though they didn't have to change the names, they wanted to distinguish this from whatever had gone on in the MGM film because it was so well known. So they're like, okay, to distance from that, we're going to rename those characters and give them slightly different personalities so we don't even risk any sort of copyright infringement lawsuits. So we'll kind of make the Tin Man kind of the head guy, and we'll sort of change the personalities a little bit here and there, and that'll let people know we're not trying to do the Judy Garland movie.
Right. And then, like, the Tin Man he needs something other than a heart this time. Oh, no, wait. Oh, wait. And what is the Scarecrow? He needs a brain, but then it not only does it have them trying to get the same things, echoing the plot of the movie, but then at the end they do the thing that just frustrates the hell out of me, where it goes, you didn't need it all along because you had it. And it's like, right. But in the original story, they actually fucking didn't have it, guys. They actually did not have it. So, but they never lost it then, or they did get it, or the wizard was an idiot. Like, please explain, story, because I'm lost now.
They don't even get a representation of it.
No.
But they are told that a very small part of their personality does contain the things they wanted. It's like, Rusty, you're not a total hostile jerk all the time. Socrates, you're not a complete moron. And you know what, Dandelion, you kind of, balled up, if that's a term. For one moment, maybe out of pure stupidity, but you did. So you're good. You know what? You're fine. Just say goodbye to Dorothy. Let's wrap this up.
Well, and in this story, don't they change the wizard as well? The wizard this time is a wizard. He's not the dude from Nebraska like he is in the story. So, like, that is such a massive part.
Chris, I thought you were the dude from Nebraska.
Oh, I am the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is from Omaha, Nebraska, of all places.
I see. That's
dead serious.
This guy is Kansas. Nebraska is where the real magic happens.
Oh, that's right. That's what it is. But they change it too. Like, that's a huge part of that story, is that, oh, you're from Earth, America, Kansas, whatever, too. And then they go back at the end of that, at least in the movie. But it's so weird that's a very weird conscious decision to make for the Wizard of Oz to now just be like actually a wizard the whole time.
Well, it's really weird in those Tales of Wizard of Oz shorts. His style, actually, all of the animation is much simpler believe it or not. And he speaks like W.C. Fields in that. And I'm like, what? Why?
And he's just drunk all the time. He's drinking.
I'm not sure about the drinking, but he's definitely a little out of it. But he is an actual wizard in that as well, because there's one part where like the Cowardly Lion is stuck in this chandelier, so he pulls a whole ladder out of his bag. So he's got that power, and he seems to be a legit wizard, though maybe not the best in the world.
Wow. I love that 1960s thing. Looney Tunes did it a lot, where characters would have voices that were associated with like old studio system film stars.
Yeah.
And as kids, you didn't really get it. You just knew that a lot of times people would talk in this certain way that sounds like a person that you later realized was supposed to be Humphrey Bogart or something. And like how many kids are watching this going, W.C. Fields? Yeah.
That scientist that would chase Bugs Bunny around, and he was totally Peter Lorre, you know. Oh, come here, Mr. Bunny Rabbit.
Well, think about and for people my age, the thing that we always have that I don't know how many people my age are like, Pinky and the Brain, the voice of Brain is 100% supposed to be Orson Welles. Like, to a T. And I don't know how many people, I would assume some people know it, but also looks like Orson Welles, kind of, if Orson Welles was a mouse.
Well, and Ren and Stimpy. It's supposed to be. Yeah. It's like Peter Lorre and Larry from the Three Stooges, I think.
Yeah. And some of his lines, like the very first time I ever watched The Maltese Falcon, and he's Peter Lorre's attacking Sidney Greenstreet, and he's just like, you fat bloated idiot. And I'm just like, oh my God.
It's rad.
But there's none of that here, right?
Not in this one. Not in the
Well, I wish there had been.
Well, Dandelion isn't Bert Lahr, but he's a little Ed Wynn. I mean,
he is. Yes,
they're still talking like. I mean, it sounds more like Charlie in the Box.
Yeah,
but I would have assumed that guy was Charlie in the Box, not Socrates.
The lion cracks me up. The lion is such a. It's like the gayest gay coded character. No, I'm not making this up, right? I'm not looking for it. I'm not hunting for gay lions, folks. They just are presenting themselves in front of me.
No, in the way Bert Lahr
isolate it. I want to isolate that line that Chris just spoke, and I want it to be just dropped in future episodes.
I'm not hunting for gay lions.
I'm not hunting for gay lions. They're just presenting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to sound in court, Chris?
Yeah. He was just there, Your Honor. He was standing in the path, and I saw him. I didn't know what to do, and I shot him.
A gay lion just presented.
He was presenting himself. I found it funny that the word that they use to classify the lion is the dandelion. And I mean, I get it, play on dandelion, but also then he opens his mouth and it's woof. It's
mean, that's a line right from, the Cowardly Lion song in the 30, what is it, 39, the film?
Yeah.
The original, right?
Yeah. And Bert Lahr definitely is playing it very fey as well. And especially when he's got the ribbons in his hair and the one on his tail and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has that thing. But yeah, I don't know. God, why did you have to get us into this, Chris?
It's just, I'll tell you what, it's funny. As someone who is gay, I laughed because it's just, this is the way you used to do coded gay characters. Just give them like a kind of over the top bombastic voice. There you go.
But is it homophobic because it's the Cowardly Lion, the unmanly, unmasculine lion?
That is for somebody else to determine, not me.
Wow.
I would be inclined to say if the idea is he's a big sissy and he's the lion, it kind of, it doesn't feel great, but at the same time, again, like, I get it. Richard, we just need to write the Wizard of Oz to end all Wizard of Oz's. That's super inclusive and diverse. And there you go. No one can ever complain.
Well, that's the weird thing about these fantasy things. I mean, because the joke is that the Wizard of Oz and Judy Garland and like a lot about that movie is sort of joined with gay culture.
Oh, 100%.
So
I mean, what was the old phrase? Was it Friends of Dorothy? Was that the
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can go into a lot of genre movies, genre literature, which again is often very, very popular in queer culture, and find metaphors for the outsider, and the secret within me that I cannot show the world because it is considered monstrous. So I mean, libraries full of papers have been written. This is not, I'm not presenting this anew, but it is kind of funny because you say that, Chris, and it's like, yeah, we should do like a new Wizard of Oz where the characters are gay. And it's sort of like, do we need, isn't that just Coles to Newcastle at this point?
Right. That's the joke though. It's like, what's the point? Again, like the Friends of Dorothy thing alone. It reminds me of in The Sopranos when they're talking about Billy Budd and they're trying to convince the mom that Billy Budd is it's gay. I mean, has a lot of homoeroticism, and she's like, no, not gay, no way. And it's like, oh no, like it totally is. Again, I don't think I don't think the lion's offensive. It's just, it's funny how hard in this one they lean on it versus just, again, the frame of reference that I was using, other than the Return to Oz that you mentioned, Mike, was obviously the 39 movie. So where he's played up, but it's not. It goes real far here.
Oh, yeah. Now I have to look up that and make sure that it's 1939 because I don't want those 10,000 emails to double. Okay, yes, 1939. Phew. Okay, Richard, you can rest easy. No emails for this episode.
Being who I am, I felt fairly confident saying that The Wizard of Oz was a 1939 film. 1939 considered a big year for
Banner
movies.
Year. Yeah.
What were the 5 Oscar nominees? Is it the top 5 box office or the top 5 the Oscar nominees? They're like 5 classic movies. It's almost like God, give them each one a Best Picture.
Right.
What are the other ones? Is Casablanca in there?
I remember for sure Gone with the Wind was one of those.
Yeah.
I don't.
And Victor Fleming was all over.
Mr. Smith movies. Goes to Washington. Stagecoach, Love Affair, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Yep, that was the year Gone with the Wind one.
Yeah.
I think Mike, because you mentioned it, and obviously I am a fan of that Disney remake that they did. Again, it's not even a remake though. Like they share it in name only, but that is something something entirely different and kind of a fucking like you said, nightmare fuel kind of way.
And it gets us closer to some of the books. Like it at least pretends and says this is based on 2 of the books. I mean, they just barely introduced the Ozma character. She's just there to help Dorothy out a little bit and then shows up at the end and poof, that's it.
Yeah, the 2 books it's based on are The Wizard of Oz and then a few things stolen from the other books.
Well, and Jack and in that Return to Oz, it has like Jack Pumpkinhead and
TikTok
and I mean Jack Pumpkinhead, as iconic as so many of the characters are from the first story, like Jack Pumpkinhead in my mind is just as iconic, primarily because of the design is just so fucking weird and frankly creepy, but again, like in a creepy in like a childish way. But at the same time, if you go and look at the illustrations in those L. Frank Baum books, I don't think many of them are not unsettling. They're all very kind of strange to look at. But again, this is modern mythology, so it's trading in things that we know, and that art style is so. I don't know, that art style to those books, at least when I think of them, I can like close my eyes and see them. It's that distinct. And that Return to Oz, I think, does a very good job of leaning on the source material's illustrations. Again, it makes it into its own weird thing that works half of the time. But at least it's trying to do something different. Like really, that for me has always been the takeaway. Like it's one of the few things that goes further than most of the Oz stuff we ever see else ever does. There's not a whole lot of stories of Dorothy in film past go to Oz and come back.
No. Yeah.
I like the idea of sidelining the lion and the Tin Man and having them frozen through most of Return to Oz. You just get a little bit of the Scarecrow, mostly in the 3rd act, really. They rescue him. And yeah, to your point, it is almost all the what was he called? The Gump?
The Gump, yeah.
Yeah, the head, the disembodied head. Jack Pumpkin, who looks like Jack Skellington quite a bit. Belina the chicken. And then who's the other? Oh, TikTok, like you said. So it's like really taking us away from those three characters that we really are familiar with, and even taking us away from the Wicked Witch, though I'd say Mombi is kind of similar. But
yeah,
the whole thing with Mombi and all the different heads, and especially when the heads all start screaming, oh my God, that was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Well, I don't understand about a movie like Return to Oz. And I mean, it came out in 85. It made like half of its budget. As an adult watching it, because I never saw it as a kid, I don't know what fucking child this was made for. Like,
right.
Good God in heaven. Like, it bums me out that we don't get stuff like this now for kids that age, because there's so much different content that, you know, there probably is this kind of content, but it's not being mainstream like this. I appreciate that there was a time where you could make this for kids and expect that kids were going to go see this. And then when they went and sat down to watch it, everybody in the theater is like, what nightmare are we walking into? Somehow it makes the never-ending story look tame. And that's for kids too. Like, that's how disturbing some of the imagery is in this. And also at times kind of how just like strange it is to, I don't know how else to say, but like strange to look at, just not unintelligible, but like I can't make heads or tails of some of the things I'm saying sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, so much stuff. Like, I don't know, the 85 one, was it made for children or was it made for teenagers and adults who remember Wizard of Oz, would be willing to pay money to go see a thing with the word Oz in the title? But the feeling on the part of the creators was, but let's give them stuff they haven't seen. So again, we distinguished that we're not a musical. We're not trying to do what the 1939 film did. It's like this weird game where people are always trying to get what they can from the name recognition, but then not have to deliver on the things that made that movie so great, because you can't really capture that. I mean, doing anything Oz, look, they made this, Rankin and Bass did this for the same reasons they did Wacky World of Mother Goose. It was like, well, let's go back to the Great American Songbook of children's literature that's all in public domain and put it out there, and it'll be recognizable enough that parents will go, oh, Jimmy, Johnny, Janie, come sit in front of the television tonight. There'll be 1 hour devoted to your shitty taste.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put on this stuff. And it's not, look, I did not dislike this as much as I disliked the experience of watching Wacky World of Mother Goose. At a certain point, it became very clear they were just going to remake Wizard of Oz in terms of those beats. So it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But that's a lot of their specials were, and their TV shows were just dipping into Pinocchio.
Last thing we watched, Cricket on the Hearth, was, we found this Charles Dickens story. Like, and then they did they completely did their own thing with it, but at the same time, they didn't. It was like you just said, Richard, they're just regurging the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because like really their best stuff is more invented, Rudolph, Santa Claus is coming to town, The Year Without a Santa Claus. Those are stories that they've got familiar characters of Santa and Mrs. Claus, but they're making up a new story. It's not based on anything. And those tended to be, I know maybe I'm conflating it because I was a kid then and those are my favorites, but those were original stories that were really fun and basically worked, had great songs. I mean, they tower over something like this that does feel like, all right, we're going to do Wizard of Oz. We'll put in a few songs. No one's breaking a sweat and put it on TV.
If you could even consider them songs, because they're like two two verses and one or two verses and two choruses, maybe. Right. And they're not memorable. Like we mentioned with Larry D. Mann as the witch who has this, what's weird is that laugh like verges on sounding like a chimp, like a monkey noise, like a monkey, like a monkey, like a call to like a mating call. It has like that like thing like at the end.
Yeah,
they have him or that character sing at one point, and the song is as atrocious as you would expect it to be, to go along with again, what's the problem with something like this? Like you just mentioned, Richard, is we already know the narrative beats because they're telling the story again. And instead of changing up the songs, they can't do the songs that oh, if I only had a brain, which like everybody knows. It's part of the common fabric of our pop culture at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You take it upon yourselves to make up a song where that song would have gone that's not good, as opposed to just maybe going over that part of the movie and introducing a song at another point where I'm not thinking to myself, oh yeah, this is where that other better song is that actually is a fully realized song, as opposed to what would amount to 30 seconds on TikTok in our, like, this is perfect for, this is perfect for kids with a short attention span. You get to watch the entire Wizard of Oz story in 50 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny to think that right on the heels of this came Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which had great songs. I mean, it's based on a song, and yet the songs they wrote for the special are arguably better than the song Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather listen to the Misfit, We're a Couple of Misfits. I'd rather listen to, We're on the Island of Unwanted Toys.
Silver and Gold. Speaking of baby. Larry D. Mann.
Yeah. Silver and Gold. All of those songs are so great. So it's clear that, as producers, they can put their, pedal to the metal when they want to. The elements all came together a little later in 1964. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. This was an inauspicious beginning to their TV primetime specials, soon to be outshone by Rudolph.
Well, and I do wonder, and maybe, again, to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, might we have been a little easier on this if it had been what they did with Rudolph, if it had been Animagic? Imagine if this had been Animagic. Like, maybe we might be a little bit more kind of willing to accept the flaws here, because you know what? I would actually like to see what these characters looked like in Animagic, walking around and doing their thing, because you know what? They probably would have been pretty close to what we saw in 39. Maybe not carbon copies, but I feel like what they would have had to have done would have had worked technically, and to work technically, some of the things they did, like those little bag creatures, could not work technically, so they would have to do something more akin to a humanoid creature, which solves maybe some of the design issues where they just were like, meh, whatever, it's animation and it's easy, we don't have to worry about it, it's cheap.
Yeah, I think for sure, for me personally, because this style of cell animation is not my favorite.
No, it's weird and disconcerting, and I'm fine with weird animation style. You mentioned the point. That's perfect for that. But with this one, it's just like, these characters don't look right. They look sloppy.
Yeah. And again, like we have a frame of, I think again, the problem does come back to, we have a frame of reference for these characters before. Like, right. We know what they can look like, what they should look like, and what they don't look like is anything. I think for me, the Scarecrow is the most indicative outside of the Munchkins of poor design, where he looks like a Munchkin upside down. He looks like he's a Munchkin turned upside down with a body on the bottom. He looks like a trash bag with a body. And it's like ugly to look at. It's ugly to look at, to the point where Mother Goose was ugly to look at. It's like just like an off-putting animation style.
And again, you set yourself an impossible goal to do something that's going to be compared with The Wizard of Oz. You're already starting so far behind the starting line. You're never going to catch up. Yeah. It's just never going to be, none of it. It's never going to be a classic film that has lived for decades.
I got an idea. Let's quit our jobs right now and open up a business that sells books to people online.
Exactly. I think that's a great idea.
It's the same thing. Like, what are you doing? You have all these places to go with this story. Why go back to where we've been before? Where you've even been before? And to the points that we've been making, Tales of the Wizard of Oz went other places than the original story did. Mm-hmm. On top of everything else, they knew that there was plenty of other interactions with weird things in the world. There's a whole area in Oz called Winkyland. That's where the Witch of the West lives, is in Winkyland. That's what she maintains her. Yeah, it's like there's all kinds of weird stuff going on in Oz. It's a fully realized world. So it just, I get going back to the same story, but even when Return to Oz kind of went back to the same story, they did something different. I mean, TikTok and the pumpkin are essentially the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, but they're different enough where I can notice the difference and appreciate that they're trying, as opposed to here's Socrates, aka the Scarecrow. Great. Like, all right.
Well, Wizard of Oz is so great, and you ever think about it, but the movie, there's there's a good 15 minutes of that movie that's in Kansas. It's just her life.
Right.
The farmhands, the mean old lady on the bicycle, the very sort of, prosaic altercation. It's like, your dog bit someone. We're going to have to get rid of your dog. Like you would watch that movie as a kid. You're like, this is a movie about a girl losing her dog. Oh my, you're totally involved with all the details of that. And she runs away and she meets a fortune teller, and you're already worried about her relatives back home. Then there's a tornado. You're deep into a human story before you go to Oz and realize that you're just getting the same themes, just now in color, and you're having more fun because there's songs now that are fun songs. So all that, I only say this because, to me, the magical elements of Oz only kind of work once you are in the point of view of Dorothy that you've been given by the movie.
Right.
That you're just like, she's living a life where she's surrounded by people who love her, but there's danger out there. And now we're going to Oz, where it's kind of the same thing, only heightened. And that's great. That is totally solid. And I don't know how much any of these other movies ever bother to do that.
And that's of the creation of those 39 filmmakers, because none of that is in the beginning of that book. There is none of the lion looks like, one of the farmhands. And that, for me, I know that people might find that a little kind of cutesy. I always think that really works for me, because it does exactly what you just said, Richard. It reinforces the idea that this story, like, it's the same story where regardless of where it's taking place, it's just the stakes have been elevated and the world is unrecognizable. But again, Oz is more or less recognizable. It's just some of the things maybe need a little explanation, kind of, for you to understand maybe what's going on.
And it's a very childlike wish, as you're experiencing your own life and the troubles that you encounter on a daily basis when you're sort of pre-adolescent, to wish yourself into a different life. It's like, this life is terrible. I hate my life. I wish I had someone else's life.
Oh, and that's where you also get the whole gay metaphor, where it's just like, people don't understand me. I'm an outcast. I don't belong. And then you get to go to this wonderful place where you do belong and you do have friends. Right.
But then of course, it's like, oh no, it's I've got problems there too. I've got, there's a mean old lady there too. So you can, again, it's just, the joke, of course, is that the studio wanted to cut the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. They were like, oh, it just slows us down. We just want to get to Oz quicker. And it's always the mistake. It's like, no, you don't get it. You're not going to like Oz. You're going to like it less, the less of Dorothy's life you get, setting you up for it. And because you're just looking at the top level of stuff. Like, there's all kinds of stories about test screenings of movies where a particular character that's important to the narrative will test poorly. It's like, everyone hates the mom. So the studio says, cut the mom, just cut the mom down to the bare minimum. Nobody likes the mom. And then the filmmakers go, let us try something else first. They add more of the mom, more context. They're like, I think they don't like the mom because they don't get the mom. I think if we put that scene back in where you understand why the mom is acting that way, we're actually going to add 5 minutes more of the mom. And then they do. And now she's everyone's favorite character. So it's not just a matter of less yellow. There's too much yellow in the movie. It's like, no, there's not too much yellow. We just have to understand why there is yellow stuff in the movie. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. All of which is to say, the 1939 movie is awesome. This one, not so much.
Well, and I think to your point, Richard, and you've kind of mentioned it, and it is kind of hard really to look at everything post 39 and say, what are we doing here? But man, like, the amount of stuff that we have gotten Oz related, I think in the last decade is a lot. I mean, when I mentioned Wicked, we got that Sam Raimi Wizard of Oz movie, or was it Sam Raimi directed Wizard of Oz?
Yeah. I really wanted to like that, but
And then Dorothy Must Die, which was like a YA series, which is totally worth checking out and is actually kind of fun again, if you're into reading and into YA books, it's kind of like what it's very similar to a lot of other things that were happening at the time. Even Stephen King is doing it now with Fairy Tale, where it's a darker version of the world that you recognize. So there's characters and munchkins and stuff, but they're not called munchkins, but it's like a dark story. And again, people were doing that for a while. But Oz and the Wizard of Oz, I feel like the 39 one, just, it's such a masterpiece, period. I don't know why you would ever want to approach it. It feels like just again, like there's something about it so intangible to so many people that to try and do something like it, you really have to transform it. Like you really have to transform it. It can't just be, we're telling the story again.
Well, I'm very curious if, Chris, if you're like one of the last generations that knows the Wizard of Oz from 39, like would somebody 10 years younger than you even know that movie?
They would. I genuinely believe the entry point for the Wizard of Oz now is Wicked. And you know what? We're about to get a Wicked movie here sometime in the next. They've been talking about it since I was in high school when that thing came out. When it was a book before it was even the musical, they were talking about making a movie of it. And I actually think that the reason the movie never came out may have to do with the movie that came out in 39, because again, like it feels like there's nothing you can do to prevent yourself from being compared to it. And I don't know if I would want to make something that's going to be compared to something like the 39 Wizard of Oz. Because like you've already said, Richard, you're starting 10 miles behind everybody else. Like, come on.
Because you're trying to remake it. And Wicked is actually a brilliant concept.
Agreed.
Going back to the Gregory Maguire book. I think that's the author's name.
I think you're right.
Because it's like, well, we're not going to retell the story of Dorothy. We're going to tell you the story of another character. We're going to, and probably the second most popular character and certainly the most psychologically rich character, the Wicked Witch. Let's find out why she's like she is and tell that story. And now you're in the world, but you're in a different town and you're doing a more modern thing. You're doing the biography of the bad guy, the anti-hero. And that's very modern. And you never would have done it in 39. That you can do. They found a door you can walk through to tell a new Oz story. And also it wasn't trying to do the exact same thing. It was trying to tell a different story and address other things that young people are desperately interested in. Why is the bully the bully? Who is the real bully? I mean, that's brilliant.
Right.
So the book was brilliant. The movie they made, okay, the musical sort of really stuck the landing, and now we're getting versions over and over of that, which is great because it's a new story.
Right. And I agree. Like, I think that for me is the way to do it, is to take something that's already there and go somewhere else with it, not continue down the same path. Because fuck Jesus Christ. Wicked is such a great idea that everybody else has ripped it off since in however many ways. Like even something like Dorothy Must Die is just looking at the source material and going, okay, so Wicked did this, so we can't do that. Let's do something else that is similar to what Wicked is doing, which is focusing on one aspect of that story and just going down the rabbit hole with that as far as you can. And like that, I know it's a contemporary way of thinking about it. Like you said, they could never have done that in 39. Not because people didn't think about it. I mean, I'm sure that there were people thinking about it, but I just don't think that's what people at the time wanted, which is fine. But I'm glad we are where we are now, and we do have all different kinds of ways of even deconstructing the most, again, straightforward of characters like the Wicked Witch of the West, who for all intents and purposes, realistically, if Wicked had never been made, would have just been the Wicked Witch of the West forever. It never would have been Alphaba, no defying gravity and none of that, which that shit's just seared in my mind. So
yeah. I mean, and the reason why I think we haven't had a Wicked movie is because it still is selling out when it comes to the showings. The actual theatrical version of it is still making money.
That's
and I'm
fair.
curious if they'll ever, because Maguire's done Wicked, Son of a Witch, A Lion Among Men, Out of Oz. So I don't know if they'll ever come up with musical versions of those as well, if they'll try to do a sequel to Wicked before they do a movie version, or if they strike and they get the movie version and then they say, oh, cool, now we can do Son of a Witch, the movie.
The movie's coming out in 2024. The movie is Wicked Part 1 is coming out in December of 2024.
Okay.
And Ariana Grande is playing Glinda. And Jeff Goldblum is playing the Wizard of Oz, folks, which
that's great.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. Yes. Like, what the fuck would that? Makes perfect sense. It's,
Now, are they doing that as an actual movie, or are they going to do it as one of these Broadway on TV things?
Two movies, two actual,
wow.
two whole, directed by John Chu of all people. So even
with
better.
The music from the musical, right? I mean, it's the Broadway musical, which has been an ongoing hit. It's one of those things that 12-year-old girls want to go see. And if
could you escape
do that,
right.
What?
How could you escape Wicked? Like, I don't even know how you wouldn't know what Wicked is, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, by being me. I'm the only age group that could conceivably not know what it is.
Really?
A guy my age who did not have daughters. So I've never been to I have not seen it. I'm aware of it, but I have not seen a stage production of Wicked. I know what it is. People have told me about it. I know the person who did it. I mean, I know a lot about it, except sitting through it and absorbing it as as an audience.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
But it's like Frozen. Again, if you can tell a story about what it's like to be a young woman, and address some of those big issues, you can write your own ticket.
I agree with you. I agree. You know what? As weird of a relationship as I have with Wicked, I'll watch the movie. I am not even going to complain about having to watch the movie, and I'll probably sing along with as many of those goddamn songs as I know, because my phone is still called Dear Old Shiz because there's a song in Wicked called Dear Old Shiz, and Dear Old Shiz, I believe, is where Dear Old Shiz is the school that they go to, I believe, or it's something to do with the school. Wicked is just. What's weird is, like, when I think of Wizard of Oz, I do think of the 39 movie, like you mentioned, Mike. But I think, to a long answer this question, Wicked will be what it is. And now with this Wicked movie coming out in 2024, that may be a reference point for a lot of kids moving forward. And there may never even be a revisiting of the 39 movie.
Which is why I'm saying that 64 now is ripe for everybody. They can watch this Rankin Bass special and just enjoy the hell out of it, like we did.
Exactly.
Yes. What a lot. What lies are you putting in our mouth? You know what? I honestly think that for me, the thing that I would push people to, if they haven't seen it, is Return to Oz from '85. And I think the thing that could have actually fixed that movie entirely is just cast someone who's a little older than Fairuza Balk. And I think a lot of the issues with the movie kind of disappear because it's weird that it is so dark tonally and it is a child. If it hadn't have been a small girl, I think the audience would have been a parent for that movie in a way that Neverending Stories audience found it, because she's just a little too young. And Atreyu in that, or not Atreyu, I guess Atreyu's the horse, whatever the hell the kid's name is in Neverending Story, is like a couple years older, to the point where he's believable. And I think that Fairuza Balk is just a couple years too young, just a couple. And I think that would have fixed maybe some of the weird tonal inconsistencies and would have helped it find a different audience, I think, at the time. And if it had found a different audience at the time, I think it would still be kind of mentioned now in the canon of Oz stuff that's worth checking out, not the things that people have kind of forgotten, because that's where it kind of sits right now, at least the Return to Oz movie.
I mean, I was 13 when Return to Oz came out, and it fit into that real dark kids film genre for me. So like Something Wicked This Way Comes, The Dark Crystal, Secret of Nim, Watership Down, Plague Dogs, like these films that kids watched. Maybe they shouldn't have watched, but there were a lot of kids films that were very dark, and Return to Oz just felt like another one of those. And I don't know, I was okay rewatching it with her being so young. I remember it being very aimed at my age group and seeing a lot of specials like on Nickelodeon talking about how it was being made, and we could see the poor guy that's inside of the TikTok costume and all these things. So I don't know. I think in '85 this was kind of more de rigueur.
That's fair. I mean, again, I also totally get that. So, and we didn't mention, but there was another Wizard of Oz thing in '72. that featured Liza Minnelli as Dorothy Gale.
Oh,
What?
Feels a little on the nose, doesn't it?
Very on the nose.
And Mickey Rooney as the Scarecrow.
wow.
Barf.
And Danny Thomas as the Tin Woodman. And
was it like a TV thing or what was this?
yes. It was a TV thing, I think at one point, or it like came out on TV. It was in theaters and then it came out on TV. And it also had Milton Berle as the Cowardly Lion.
Oh boy.
Jesus Christ.
Talk about a weird, oh boy. Well, that puts that all in perspective in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
And Margaret Hamilton plays Annie M in another piece of hilarious casting. So yeah, this seems interesting, but it's a mix of the first book and Marvelous Land of Oz, which is the second one. So, and the art style looks like completely insane in a way that this one doesn't. So maybe that's the one worth checking out. I don't know.
Is this live action?
No, this is animated.
Oh, okay. I mean, because there have been tons of animated versions of this over the years and live action. I mean, there were versions of Wizard of Oz that were coming out when Baum was still alive.
Right. But I don't know how many of them feature Liza Minnelli playing. That's what you're there for, right? So,
oh, of course.
Yeah. And I guess at one point it featured Bill Cosby as well. So lovely. But it's a full-length feature. So I don't know. Again, I'm not a Wizard of Oz person. Like, I know that that's a thing. And I know that there are plenty of people that are super duper into Wizard of Oz.
Those are the ones that are writing to Richard
Chris,
right now.
You said you were gay, so you have to be the Wizard of Oz.
That's true. You got me. I do have a pair of ruby red slippers in my closet. So.
we good to wrap up, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me take a quick bathroom break, and I'll be back in like 45 seconds.
All right.
Go for it. Hey, this was fun.
Now I have to find that Liza Minnelli thing.
I put it in chat.
Okay.
Oh, you mean find? Oh, you
Journey
mean like
back to Oz?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you mean like find it? It was released. It was released by who the hell was it released by? Filmation. Yeah. The art style looks bizarre.
They have a very particular art style. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. It's like kind of strange looking. Like if the one we just watched doesn't have a lot of style, this one is like replete with it. So
oh, there we go. It's all hopefully in full on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Hour and 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, this art style looks pretty nice.
Yeah.
You know, but then again, when you spent 50 minutes watching ugly shit thrown on screen.
Right. Exactly.
God.
Oh yeah, there's Jack Pumpkinhead.
She looks very Snow White-ish.
Yes.
Like I think it's weird. They probably should have made her dress checked as opposed to just blue and white. Oh, and there's a pink horse at 27 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I see Ozma. Ozma looks like She-Ra.
Trying to find Ozma. Where's Ozma at?
Where was I? Just at 114. She's standing behind the Scarecrow.
Oh yeah! Holy shit, she does. My God, yeah. Not like the Scarecrow looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Man, yeah. Rankin and Bass, man. I don't know what they were thinking with some of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I get it. Like that's what the Astounding Tales of the Public Domain effectively is for us. Like,
right,
just doing somebody else's thing. The lion looks. They did not do any effort on that lion. The most generic looking lion possible. Yes, I am a lion, and you will be able to tell that I am.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So the King and I is going to be a little tough to find because there was
the
Disney
one?
Version. Yeah.
Isn't the one that we're watching have Telly Savalas? No. Who does the voice? Is it Chow Yun Fat?
No, he was in a live action version.
Damn it. A guy who doesn't even have IMDb listings.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All righty. I guess take us home to the next stop on the Rankin and Bass train.
All right. So, Chris, before we check out of here, what are you up to these days?
Well, you can find everything that I work on, which is lots of things over at weirdingwaymedia.com, where you can find my show, The Culture Cast, Mike's show, The Projection Booth, and Richard's show, Rankin on Bass, and but more importantly, Richard's wife's show, 80s TV Ladies, where it's women talking about TV shows from the 80s with women in it. Like, what are you listening to us schmoes for? We're just talking about dumb animated Potato Sack people. Go check it all out. weirdingwaymedia.com. Go now. Stop what you're doing. This is the end of the episode. Just go there.
I like how you refer to this as my show.
That's what I was going to say.
It is
my show.
This is your show as much as it's my show, as much as it's Mike's show. We're the co-hosts of Rankin and Bass.
Good. As long as the blame is spread evenly.
Yes. 33. Well, you get 34%. Mike and I get whatever is 1% less. So it is technically your fault.
Yeah.
Damn.
Because here's the thing. You get 1% extra because you are the reason the show is happening, because you came up with the name. And we have proof of that on recording, folks.
Never make a pun in an unguarded moment. You'll never have a free Sunday again.
Wow.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we ride Richard so hard that we ask him to show up once a month. What about you, Mike? Where can people find you when you're not spending every Sunday recording Rankin and Bass with Richard?
Every Sunday. There are so many episodes that people will never hear because we record every Sunday.
52 weeks a year we record and we release one a month?
That's wild. It's like Prince, the way that Prince recorded all those songs that are still in the vaults.
Right.
Okay. Okay. You've got a point. Maybe we're not doing Rankin on Bass every Sunday.
No, that would be a weekly podcast, Richard, which is what Mike does over at the projection booth.
But I'm going to tell you, if we don't bump it up to weekly, we're never going to get through it. Because I was looking at the book. Oh, God. I still don't think we've scratched the surface.
No, there's a long way before we can sleep. So, Richard, when you're not podcasting here, how about Rankin and Bass? What are you doing?
Well, I was working on HBO Max's Titans. But we're still waiting to hear about season 5. And we've all got our fingers crossed. But right now you can watch seasons 1 through 3 in their entirety. You can watch the first half of season 4, the first 6 episodes. People are loving them. And the final 6 episodes of season 4 drop, rumor has it, in April. Now we're in mid-January. And so that seems like a long time to wait, but the episodes are done. They're coming your way sooner or later. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, there'll be a season 5 and we'll keep going.
Very cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Abby Stabby for our artwork, as well as the Great Octopus for our theme music. Be sure to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. We will be back next month with a look at the only animated feature film from Rankin and Bass that we haven't talked about yet, 1999's The King and I. Until then, be sure to rate and review the podcast wherever you get it. Tell your friends, tell your family, and please stay weird.
Stay dandy. Damn.